Welcome back to some more Umineko when they cry. So, from where we last left off for this mysterious shenanigans in episode 7, we we gained enough trust from Kinzo to where we can go back to his past, or we're getting, more of a backstory in which it starts off within the young Kinzo era. We're going back to World War II, in which, aka, this chapter is a history lesson, the, aka the Salo Republic. So, according to Kinzo, he's not a big fan of being involved in the military, especially on a remote island. But if anything, we're actually gonna get an interesting meeting with the Italians. So, let's continue. On top of the hatch was a young Italian saluting us. Normally, this should have been the job of a commissioned officer, but his clothes looked like those of a sailor, and it really didn't look like he had the dignity and composure of a ship's captain. That probably meant that all of the commissioned officers in charge had died in the accident that had befallen the sub. Crew members crawled out of the hatch one by one, but they all looked pale and entirely worn out. I'm not sure how long ago the accident happened, but being crammed together in a tiny sub filled with chlorine gas for any moment of time can't be good for your health. Not only had the ventilators broken, but traveling about carelessly on the surface of the waters around Japan these days would be foolish in the extreme. It had been like a trip inside a can of poison gas. Almost all of them were unable to walk without leaning on someone else. It looked like a bunch of people staggering out of a hospital boat.
後ろ宮艦長は誰か聞け。私がこの島の指揮官であることを説明せよ。
ようこそ日本へ。英語がわかる者は。
The crew members seemed to understand that I was speaking English, but it looked as though none of them could speak it. Eventually, someone who seemed to be dressed as an officer saluted.
ようこそ日本へ。艦長でありますか。
I can not speak English. Please, wait.
The officer answered in slow, laborious English. After asking us to wait, he shouted something to his subordinates in rapid Italian. It looked as though he was telling them to get someone among them who could speak English.
後ろ宮何と言っている。
待てと言っています。英語のわかる人間を呼んでいるのかもしれません。
So, according to last part, Kinzo is now is asked to be given the role to be the interpreter for, the other factions. So, there's that. At that moment, I heard a high-pitched cough. It wasn't a man's cough, it was a woman's.
私、英語わかるわ。
Whoa. I see. We have a different... Is this... What is this? Beatrice from the past? The hell is this? I'm confused. What is this nonsense? As she came down from the hatch, a woman with beautiful golden hair said this in English. In this filthy cavern, the appearance of one as beautiful as she was seemed like an angel descending upon us.
ようこそ日本へ。艦長はいますか？
艦長は死んだわ。士官はあそこの彼だけよ。
お悔やみ申し上げます。何かお手伝いはできますか？
新鮮な空気と水が欲しいわ。まだ息のある人間もいる。休ませる場所が欲しいわ。
This is so weird. It's like they put I don't even know what's going on anymore. It's like they put Beatrice's head, like the resemblance of her head and put it and place it on a different body and just call it a different character. Like I mean, like at least with Kinzo is like, well, it's not even Kinzo. It's just Kinzo, but with a battler's voice. But I can see why Battler is like, you know, have some of like the resemblance of what Kinzo is. So
協力しましょう。他に英語のわかる人間はいますか？
いたけどみんな死んだわ。私だけよ。
後宮、女は何を言っている？艦長は誰だ？さっきの男なのか？その女は何者なのか？早く通訳しろ！
the lieutenant has been yelling like that for a while now. He must have been surprised to see such a beautiful woman appear from a submarine, and more than a little annoyed to see all of her attention focused on me alone. It was a mark of how divinely beautiful she was.
注意殿。彼女だけが英語をわかるようです。彼女が彼らの通訳になります。艦長は死亡。代表者は先ほどの士官のようです。
うるさくあなたに叫んでいる男は何者？まさかあなたの上司なの？
不幸なことに、私が美しいお嬢さんを独り占めしているのが気に入らないんでしょう。
あら、東洋人にお世辞をもらえるとは思わなかったわ。綺麗な英語ね。あなたは育ちが良さそうだわ。怒鳴ってるみっともない男とは大違い。
I mean, I don't know about rude man. I'm pretty sure like most military superiors wouldn't usually talk like that to like, you know, the underdogs that are part of the military. Or, you know, that's how like if you're in boot camp, you know, you would expect that from like from drill sergeants. Especially like you want to be like, you know, disciplined and in shape, you know.
あなたがここの将校だったらよかったのに。
おや、私も西洋人にお世辞をもらえるとは思いませんでした。
あなたは面白い人だわ。名前は？
後宮金蔵です。よろしければお嬢さんの名前もぜひ。
ベアトリーチェ・カスティリオーニ。
Beatrice Castiglione.
ようこそベアトリーチェ、日本へ。
That was when I first met Beatrice, the woman who would capture my heart for the rest of my life.
ベアトリーチェとはイタリア人だったのですか？
That's crazy.
そうだ。彼女は RSI 交換の娘だった。どうやら彼女の父親こそが一番の罪人だったらしい。残念ながら六軒島にたどり着いた時にはもう死んでいた。
その交換がなぜ日本に？スエズ運河からインド洋を越えてはるばる日本まで来たというのか。
確かに同盟国としてはドイツの方がはるかに近いはず。
Well, that's the thing, right? When I heard Castiglione, I was like, okay, it's European last name. I was like, huh. Because the last name sounded Italian. Like it's wrapped in my head. I was like, I was playing it dumb too. So I was like, wait, was Kinzo's wife supposedly Italian? Interesting.
なぜわざわざ日本までやってきたのでしょう。
途方もない規模の遠大な作戦か何かだったのかもしれん。その全容はわからん。その潜水艦がただならぬ任務を帯びていたらしいことは後に理解することとなる。
They said that there had been about 60 of them at the time of their departure. However, only about 10 of them, including Beatrice, had survived. Their submarine had apparently hit a mine or something in the nearby waters and sustained a great deal of damage. They told us that it had flooded rapidly with water, which had taken out the batteries and released a large amount of chlorine gas. Their sub had become completely incapable of continuing further. Nothing but a massive lump of metal floating by the dock. Since the sub seemed to be carrying something of immense value, quote unquote, the higher-ups ordered us to investigate. After questioning the Italians, with Beatrice and me acting as double interpreters, we concluded that this thing of immense value must have been her father himself. Apparently, Beatrice's father was extremely high up in the RSI hierarchy, and it was thought that he might have worked alongside Mussolini himself. So their massive voyage had apparently been part of some top-secret mission. Now that the man himself and all of the commissioned officers had died, their reason for coming to Japan remained a mystery. And our higher-ups were telling us to investigate, which meant that even they didn't know what it was. What, so... Did the submarine was brought over and it contained like riches in there? Their ship had broken down, their mission was unknown, and the high official they had been carrying was dead. And even the Japanese government didn't know why they were here. The Italians' great and perilous voyage had come to a meaningless and utterly fruitless end.
Yo katta. 日本の潮風はてっきり醤油の匂いがすると思ってたわ。
If only.
お互い様です。イタリア人の髪はパスタでできてるって思ってました。
What the fuck? If their hair were made of pasta, you would eat it out of it.
あら、そうよ。アルデンテに仕上げるには茹で加減が難しいの。
their hair, they would eat it out of their head, is what the joke would be.
なら日本人はみんなスパゲティネイロだわ。
よくご存知で。日本人は シャンプーの代わりにイカスミを使います。
金蔵はすごいわ。何でも知っているのね。イタリアに来たことがあるの？
Yeah, apparently there's a thing. I don't know which anime it was that I kind of got the squid ink spaghetti, but I think the anime in English is called Squid Girl. Although I don't know what the Japanese phrasing for the anime is called. I think it's called Ika Musume. So there was like there was this like comedic bit where the character like was like supposedly like a squid girl like threw up like ink on the spaghetti, and they call it like squid ink spaghetti. So I never tried it before, but if it, although like I wouldn't be surprised like if it's actually still edible right now.
ありません。しかし本はいろいろと読みました。
東洋人がイタリアの本を？へえ、例えばどんな？
ニッコロ・マキャベッリ、ダンテ・アリギエーリも。だからあなたが永遠の淑女であることも存じていますよ。
おお、なんてこと。金蔵はとんでもない勉強家だわ。あなたはひょっとして日本では高貴な家の出身なのでは？
さあ、どうでしょう。
Who knows if Kinzo was some rich kid?
あなたは他の野蛮そうな日本人とはまるで違うわ。私にはわかるの。あなたはきっと高貴な家の人間だわ。後ろ宮家は日本の貴族の家柄なの？
とんでもない。紡績で一山当てただけのただの成金の一族です。私が勉強していたのは高貴なるものとしてのたしなみではなく、何をすることも許されなかったら本を読むかバラをいじるか酒に溺れるかしかやることがなかったからですよ。
That sounds pretty boring for when it comes to hobbies within the noble family, though. But I mean, then again, I never. I don't know. I don't know their perspective, so there had been no trace of malice in Beatrice's words. It had just been a curious question asked to a friend from a faraway country. However, Beatrice was from a noble family herself, so she could tell. Excuse me. She could see the faint, gloomy look on Kinzo's face.
許して、金蔵。あなたのような高貴な人がどうしてこんなおかしなところで兵卒の身分に甘んじているのか、深く考えなかったわ。
私の一族などどうでもいいことです。死ねば後ろ宮などという姓は何の意味もない。そしてそれこそがようやく私を解き放ってくれるのです。
金蔵は死にたくて軍隊に？そんなのダメ。家族が悲しむわ。
家族など私には誰も。
Like me have a family? Please, I don't think I have a family at all. I have a wife for the sake of public appearances and children. However, I've never wanted any of them. Everything is a fleeting daydream created by those selfish, greedy elders. So at least while I'm on this island, I can forget about all of that and find some peace. Peace? But haven't I spent each and every day complaining that I wasn't sent to the front and haven't managed to die yet?
私にあなたの苦しみはわからないけれど、私の心ない言葉が傷つけてしまったことはわかるわ。許して金蔵。
Forgive me, Kinzo. Yes, those words are probably what did it. Wait, oh shit. All of the Japanese called me Ushiromiya. It reminded me that I was the property of the Ushiromiya family every time they talked. But she was different. She called me Kinzo, not Ushiromiya. So maybe, just for the time I chat with her like this, I can forget that cursed family.
金蔵。
I hadn't meant to make Beatrice feel guilty, but she seemed certain that her thoughtless words had hurt me.
ありがとう。
She's like, what?
あなたが私を金蔵と呼んでくれるから、私はやっと自分を取り戻すことができる。私はようやく本当の意味で私を見てくれる人に出会えた気がします。
金蔵。あなたはとても遠い異国で出会った外国人だけれど、あなたの心はとても繊細で美しい。
So we have Kinzo, who was supposedly a victim of the within under the noble bloodline, and we have Beatrice Castiglione, who is an Italian daughter of a high-ranking officer. No, I guess fate has been met within this one.
私たちはきっと近所に住んでいたならとても当たり前な友人になっていたわ。私も嬉しいのよ。あなたは私のことをベアトリーチェと呼ぶ。カスティリオーニのご令嬢とは呼ばないわ。
Well, calling you that sort of title would be a little too far-fetched. Sure. We were both in the same position. Her Castiglione family must have been a rigid place as well. Though we came from different countries, we had finally found something that we both understood.
金蔵は親しい者には何て名前で？
いえ、普通に金蔵と呼ばれていました。
じゃああなたは私をベアトリーチェと呼ぶのを改めるべきだわ。親しい人間は私のことをビーチェと呼んでいた。
Beatrice Bice? Bice?
あなたもそうしてくれると嬉しいわ。
Is Bice even a nickname?
わかりました。これからは親しみを込めてビーチェとお呼びを。
ダメダメ。堅苦しい言葉はダメ。だって私たちはもう友人なのだから。
A bright smile stretched across Beatrice's face.
あの美少があれから何十年を経ようとも我が記憶より薄れることはない。
おじい様はベアトリーチェと出会うことで自分を取り戻されたのですね。
His Kinzo's third eye awakens ever since the day he met Beatrice.
平たくいや浮気だな。
He cheated on. He cheated on his. Well, it looked like he had a. Well, it did. It teased to where he has a wife and kids. So you telling me that he was unhappy with his current wife? And damn, fucking Willard just fucking say something like that to where Leon just pinched it.
ウィルさんは今後も失言を繰り返されるなら、お尻をかばわれる癖をつけることをお勧めします。
After having his butt pinched once more, Will hopped around in pathetic agony.
おじいさまにとってロケン島はベアトリーチェと初めて出会われた特別な場所だったのですね。
うん。私がこの島に来ることがなければ出会うこともなかった奇跡の島なのだ。
その潜水艦基地の名残とやらは今も残っているのか。
クワドリアンの近くに今も残っている。外界からは見えぬ入り江の影だ。不吉がって漁師たちも近寄らなかった島だ。私以外に知る者はもはやいるまい。
I know the Koadarian is a thing, but no one had like found a cave yet, so it's like, yeah.
クワドリアンと屋敷を結ぶ2キロにも及ぶ地下道はその基地の名残なのか。
そうだ。鍾乳洞を改造した広大な地下壕で地下を網羅し、島内各地を要塞化するなどという寝言の残骸だ。私はその地下道を生かし、島の両端に2つの屋敷を作らせたのだ。
Well, at least we already know how that goes.
2つの屋敷、2つの家族。後宮家の屋敷と後宮家から解放された金蔵の屋敷だったのですね。
そうだ。私には必要だったのだ。後宮という呪われた生から逃れるもう一つの場所が。
So you're telling me you don't like the current Ushiramiya family that you raised. So in order to reserve your escapism, you made the mansion very hidden in the forest where you can create your own family that as part of your own happy. Okay. I don't.
しかし同情するよ。はるばる日本までやってきて任務を成し遂げられなかったとは気の毒の限りだ。
パパの任務が何だったかよくわからないわ。どこか遠くへ逃げ、大切な日までそれを隠さなければならないと言っていた。
それとは
わからないわ。それはとても大切なもので、大切な日まで何年も隠しているつもりだったみたい。いえ、それと一緒に隠れているつもりだったみたい。私に異国の地で長い時間を過ごすことになるかもしれないと謝っていたから。
アンジェロ少尉は積み荷は特になく、君の父上が輸送すべき要人だったと言っていたが。
少尉はあなたたちを信用してないわ。私でさえ知っていることをいくつも隠してる。ひょっとすると少尉はパパの目的と積み荷を知っているのかも。
それが何だったにせよ、それはイタリア軍の任務さ。俺らには関係ないね。むしろ同盟国なんだ。頼ってくれればいいのに。
金蔵が良い人であることは疑わないわ。少尉にもあなたは信頼できる人間だと伝えてるんだけれど、どうして男というのは異教ではむやみやたらと厳格になるの？普段はみんなもっと陽気な人たちばかりなのに、ここへ来てからみんな妙に空気が張り詰めているわ。少尉は部下たち全員に常時銃を手放さないように命じてる。まるでここが敵地かのようだわ。
That was true. The Italians were clearly the very opposite of relaxed. The Japanese soldiers watching this began to suspect that the Italians didn't really trust him at all.
軍人ならおかしいことじゃないさ。むしろこういう時こそ規律を引き締めて、友軍に恥ずかしいところを見せたくないんじゃないか。
就寝時には必ず寝図板を立てるし、もう航行できないスクラップ同然の潜水艦に今もあなたたちを近づけないように見張りを立てているわ。
Yeah, how the fuck are they gonna drive back home with that fucking thing, with that battered submarine?
私はなんだか日本人を露骨に毛嫌いしているように見えて気持ちが悪い。
True, they had set up a constant sentry by the submarine and had refused to let any of the Japanese soldiers come near. This hadn't made the Japanese particularly happy. However, submarines are treated as classified in all countries. Maybe it was just natural for them to stop foreigners from approaching without reason. Excuse me.
慣れない生活を強いられて、みんな気が立ってるんだろう。天候と女将の都合で、君たちを本土へ運ぶ船の派遣がまた遅れてる。君たちをいつ本土へ送ってあげられるやら。
So the Italians had some. I think the Japanese soldiers on Rokujima are pretty suspect. So let me see. So I guess there is. Seems you can't get along as easily as you expect. We had been told that a boat was being sent for them directly from the mainland, but apparently, thanks to the weather, problems up the command chain, and the recent air raids, they had no ships they could spare on a forgotten island like this. There may have been political issues as well. After all, the Italians' homeland had already surrendered to the Allies. I didn't know the details. The only thing I knew for sure was that they'd been stuck in Rokujima for 2 whole weeks and no one had come to get them. Of course, we had some small boats on Rokujima. There was nothing physically stopping us from taking them to a nearby island. Yeah, you had some fucking boats anyway. Y'all are just gonna be, you know, shut up in Rokujima as like your usual hidden base. Still, Rokujima was technically a top secret base, and contact with the outside world had been strictly forbidden. Well, I guess, fair enough. Strictly forbidden.
仕方がないし、それも悪くないわ。だって船が来てしまったら金蔵とはもう会えなくなってしまうんでしょ。
確か
True.
に。
True. To me, those 2 weeks were the first I'd ever truly lived. The faint 20 years before all seemed to vanish in the sparkle of that pair of weeks. I realized that she'd have to leave this place eventually, and yet this single moment felt so rich and dazzling that I felt myself wishing it could last forever. Then I heard a voice calling for Beatrice in Italian.
アンジェロ少尉だよ。君に用事みたいだ。
またお小言かしら。日本人とあまり親しくするなと最近うるさいのよ。
Alright, because like Lieutenant Angelo having trust issues when it comes to Japanese. The second lieutenant approached, saluting Kinzo, and after glancing at Beatrice as though asking her to translate something, he began to speak in Italian. Judging by his tone, it sounded like something serious.
少尉はとても重要な話があるからあなたたちの指揮官に合わせてほしいと言ってるわ。協力を求めたいと言っている。何のことかわからないわ。
重要な話。わかった。山本中尉を探そう。
Lieutenant Angelo had 2 of his subordinates with him and wore a stern expression on his face. They didn't have to say anything for us to realize that this had to be something very serious. The winch creaked and the thick chains rang out with a dull clang. Very, very slowly, it, quote unquote, was lifted up out of the submarine's cargo hold.
なるほど。イタリア人どもが我々を潜水艦に近づけたがらないわけだ。
The first lieutenant and the others looked up at what the winch was slowly lifting up, all of them wearing unpleasant, forced smiles.
なんてこと。これがパパの運んでいた積み荷だというの。
すごい。こんなの生まれて初めて見た。
It was a mountain of gold ingots. What the fuck? So, you mean to tell me So the gold alchemist was just a disguise, but in reality, the Italians within that battered up submarine brought in a boatload of gold bars. Those carefully piled bars were being slowly lifted out of the cargo hold, one group after another. This gold had been their true cargo. I don't know where they were planning to take it. They might have been trying to sneak it into Japan, one of their allies. Or they might have been on their way to hide it in some remote area. Was it some sort of strategy? A conspiracy? Embezzlement? Top secret transportation of wealth? This incomprehensible amount of gold led to all sorts of dark suspicions, but we didn't know anything about the truth. Alright. Well, that's the thing, right? Because how Kinzo built up the family was during, like, the World War era. But I'm pretty sure, like, Japan's, like, or, like, a a different faction brought in the riches. I don't know where the Italians got all the fucking riches from, but well, there you go. All told, the gold weighed an incredible 10 tons. That was the only truth we could wrap our minds around at the moment. They had strongly resisted showing this to us. However, the submarine could no longer make sea, and it was apparently continuing to take in water bit by bit. Rokunjima had been outfitted in an extremely slipshod way, so we had no means of repairing it. Also, though we could unload the sub, there was no way we'd be able to lift it up again once it had filled with water and sunk to the bottom. Now that transporting the gold away had clearly become an impossible goal, they had apparently decided on unloading it. Of course, they made no effort to explain the reason behind all this gold. They just asked us to help them take it out.
なぜこんな大量の黄金を国外へ？これだけあればイタリアの戦局を変えられたかもしれないのに。
戦局を変えるのは武器よ。でも戦後は何の役にも立たないわ。確かにお金も戦局を変えはするでしょうよ。でも戦後にもその価値は変わらないわ。
There's no longer any way to change the course of this war. The Axis powers will probably all surrender, leading to an Allied victory. Anyone could tell that simply by looking at the American planes flying across the sky day after day. However, gold does not lose its value after war. Everyone stared upwards, dumbfounded, as the winch slowly lifted the dully sparkling gold. And that concludes this chapter. The Solo Republic, now, at least in reality, where the gold is from. The Witch Who Came from the Sea.
注意。イタリア人たちはこの黄金のことを本土へ報告しないことを望んでいます。
我が国に横領されたくないからであろうな。
彼は何と？
日本が黄金を横領するのを恐れているから報告されたくないのだろうと言っている。
少尉はむしろイタリア本国に知られることを恐れているわ。私たちにとって今の祖国は連合国の傀儡政権。彼らに知られれば黄金は返還することになる。しかしそれは私たちの敵に黄金を渡すようなもの。
They'd come all this way to make sure that the gold didn't fall into enemy hands. They needed to hide it from that puppet government until their homeland be truly restored.
後宮、イタリア人たちに提案せよ。我々は協力を申し出たいとな。
協力とは？
Yeah, what kind of assistance are we talking about?
イタリア人たちの言い分はこうであろう。彼らはその黄金を祖国に知られることなく隠したいわけだ。しかしこの島から運び出そうとすれば輸送船を手配せねばならなくなる。そうすれば本土に知られ、さらにはイタリア本国にも知られることとなる。
そうなります。つまりあの黄金はもう六軒島からは運び出せない。
Their mission must have been to hide the gold in absolute secrecy until the day of their homeland's restoration. Later on, several plausible rumors would circulate. And that's quite a lot. About how Nazi Germany also moved much of its secret wealth to certain hidden areas in South America just prior to its collapse. It was a very natural conclusion to reach. That submarine was their only method of transporting the gold in secrecy. And it's become completely useless. They can't fully stop the water from seeping in, and it'll probably sink completely before much longer. There's no longer any way for them to transport the gold in secrecy. In other words, their mission has ended in failure here in the Far East. So, just how is Lieutenant Yamamoto proposing that we assist them?
この六軒島基地は誰も知らぬ秘密基地だ。近隣の島民たちはこの島を不吉な無人島と信じて近寄りもしない。言っている意味がわかるか、後ろ宮。
彼は何と？
前にも話した通り、この六軒島基地は誰にも知られていない。見ての通り、戦略価値は何もなく、上層部にもすでに忘れられてる。注意は、この島に黄金を隠してはどうかと提案したいみたいだ。
Beatrice quickly translated this and told Lieutenant Angelo. He began discussing something rapidly with his subordinates. They didn't look happy. Japan may have been their ally, but they probably didn't want to leave the gold for reconstructing their motherland in Asian hands. Asian hands. Still, it was hard to imagine any other option for them.
激しく議論しているわ。他に手はないという者もいるし、それでも祖国に忠誠を尽くすべきだという者もいる。少尉は板挟みになってるわ。
The final order given to them by their fallen homeland was to hide the gold. However, by now, there was no other way for that order to be carried out successfully. If the mainland or their own homeland found out, the gold would probably be confiscated by the wrong people from their point of view. They really wanted to carry out their homeland's orders faithfully. Lieutenant Yamamoto's proposal was extremely reasonable. Though he couldn't understand their words, he seemed to realize how divided they were.
我々が協力すれば、あの黄金を厳重に隠すことができるぞ。
It's one of those debates, huh? So we gotta hide the gold in this hidden island just to hide the wealth secret.
幸いなことに、廃棄された地下壕が長々とこの島の地下を横断している。
この島の地下に黄金を隠して埋めれば、誰にも発見できないと言ってる。
現実的な申し出だと議論してるわ。でも日本人の手を借りるのに抵抗を感じてるみたい。
議論が難航しているようです。
議論の余地などあるのか、イタリア人。我々の協力なくばあの黄金は隠せんぞ。まさかいつまでも波打ち際に積み上げておくわけにもいくまい。
アンジェロ少尉は黄金のことを知る人間を最小で抑えたいみたい。日本人は信用できないけど、山本中尉の申し出が今は最善と見てるみたいよ。
Yeah. Because what will happen to the gold if it gets stolen away? No, it leaves it to the wrong hands.
でもいぶかしがってるわ。
何を
10トンの黄金を隠すという労力の提供と守秘義務を彼らが本当に無償で提供してくれるのかとね。
五分と五分だ。
注意、それはまさか。
あの黄金の半分を我々によこせ。 それを手間賃に残りの半分を厳重に隠してやる。
半分をよこせと言ってる。
The instant Beatrice translated that sentence, Lieutenant Angelo slammed his hands on the desk and stood up. Instead of flinching, Lieutenant Yamamoto, true to his boasts of once being a thug everyone feared, actually looked even more relaxed and confident than he had previously.
本来なら断りようのない話だ。8割を要求してもおかしくない。それを敬意を表して五分と五分にしようと提案しているのだ。これは我々だけに有意な話ではない。イタリア人たちが外部にこのことを漏らせば、全ての黄金は日本かイタリアに接収されるだろう。我々には1円たりとも転がり込んでこない。我々は全員が共犯でなくてはならないのだ。
全員に着服の共犯になれと言ってる。周囲はすでに軍人としてでなく個人として話をしている。
Well, that's the thing. What the fuck is the Japanese gonna do with the 50% of the gold?
なんてこと。黄金に目がくらんだのね。
Lieutenant Yamamoto was grinning. It really did look as though he had been blinded by greed, just as Beatrice said.
あのまま山積みにしていれば、やがて本土から来る迎えの連中の目にいやおうなく入るだろう。そうなれば、ここにいる誰もが得をしないぞ。我々の申し出を受けて、早急に黄金を隠すべきだ。
アンジェロ少尉は日本政府やイタリア政府にはどうしても知られたくないみたい。彼は自分が与えられた任務に最後まで責任を持ちたいみたいよ。
つまりどういうことだ。
何割かを口止め料として与えてでも島内に地中深く埋めることを望んでるわ。もちろん下士官たちには異論もあるみたい。5割は問題外だと憤慨してるわ。
後宮、イタリア人たちの感触はどうだ。
彼らも黄金がこれ以上の人目につくことを望んでいないようです。しかし取り分に異論があるようです。
少尉は1割ならば検討できると言ってるわ。無論山本中尉がそれで納得しないだろうとも言ってるけど。
Yeah, because Yamamoto is a sack of shit.
後宮、イタリア人の返事はいかに。
1割なら検討すると。
This time, it was Lieutenant Yamamoto who slammed down on the desk. But the Italians didn't flinch at either. An incredible tension filled the small room. However, despite his violent outburst a second ago, Lieutenant Yamamoto's expression still looked smug and in control. He was probably confident that he now had the initiative.
1割 ?1 割か。それはつつましやかな提案だ。いいだろう。なら1割を譲ってやろう。しぶろくだ。これ以上は譲らんと伝えろ。
40% for the Japanese, 60% for the Italians. The lieutenant was talking tough, but in truth, these negotiations weren't being made on an equal footing. If the Italians had just wanted the gold for themselves, there wouldn't have been much of a problem. Is it the Italians' riches, or were they able to just discover it just just from war spoils alone. Where the fuck did they get the gold? But what if? What if they were true patriots and decided to return the gold for the purpose of reconstruction, even to the defeated puppet government of their homeland? If so, they would probably report the existence of the gold to the Italian embassy. Eventually, the Italian government would petition the Allied nations for the retrieval of their gold. It probably wouldn't all make it back to Italy, but it might be used effectively to repair and rebuild their battered towns. If that happened, Lieutenant Yamamoto and his friends would only be able to sneak out a few ingots at most. He was greedily planning to make this his own treasure island so that he and his subordinates could have an enormous fortune all to themselves. If he wanted to succeed, the Italians would have to keep the presence of the gold quiet.
しかし疑問だ。アンジェロ少尉が誰にも黄金を渡したくないなら、沈みゆく潜水艦に任せて沈めればよかったはず。
Yeah, it's gonna sink and be just stuck in Rokujima for the entirety of their life.
どうして荷上げを？
考えたくはないけれど、命令が遂行不能になった時点で少尉はこの黄金を横領することを考え始めたのかも。彼は今下士官たちに軍人としての意見と祖国に家族が待つ一個人としての意見を聞きたいと言っているわ。堅物の下士官たちが激高してる。
The discussion between the Italians was becoming fierce and emotional. Though their homeland had fallen, they had come all this way in accordance with its orders. They had probably been given this mission because they were particularly faithful and duty-minded troops. It seemed they couldn't just agree to a foreigner's proposal to embezzle and split up the gold. Lieutenant Angelo looked like he was doing all he could to calm the unexpectedly fervent rage of his subordinates. Looks like the gold is blinding them too. Everyone's mixing up their true feelings with how they want to be seen, and they can't make up their minds. Ah, yes, the whole gold thing. It's like, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the fucking family inheritance debate on the first few episodes. Now it's just like with the Kinzo situation.
奴らの返答はいかに？
No wonder Kinzo can't put up with the bullshit.
後ろ宮！
B ちゃん、周囲が返事を求めてる。
考える時間が欲しいと言ってるわ。私はあなたと話せたから気が紛れてよかったけれど、他の人たちはそうじゃないの。
I'm getting a bad feeling there's a shootout that's gonna be occurred, and it's all over a fucking money.
とても長い後悔の果てに大勢の仲間を失って極限状態でここにいるわ。唯一の心の拠り所だった任務ももはや喪失してる。どうすればいいのか彼らも分かってないの。
注意。彼らは時間が欲しいと言っています。
いいとも、大いに議論したらいい。しかし時間はないぞ。隠すとなったら時間と手間がかかる。明日の正午までに結論しろ。以上だ、イタリア人ども。
回答期限は明日の正午だそうだ。周囲ね、まるで脅迫だ。
少尉は全員の意見を聞くと言ってるわ。
感触は
多分難航するわ。少尉自身は山分けもあり得ると考えてるみたいだけど、 下士官や他の仲間たちは多分反対するわ。みんなこの極東までの航海で大切な仲間を大勢失ってる。彼らは頑なに祖国への忠誠を貫きたがってる。
注意の申し出は断ると。
断ってもどうせ黄金は誰かの手に渡るわ。何も残らないならせめてインゴットの一本ずつでも密かに持ち帰ろうという少尉の言い分に同調者も出そうだけど、こういう時の男って勢いだけが迷走するわ。
True.
私も見当がつかない。
イタリア人たちの胸中は複雑でしょうね。
彼らにとって降伏後のイタリアは敵国同然だろう。黄金をそのイタリアに返還するのは彼らの長い旅路を全て否定するのと同じだ。
しかし黄金を着服して山分けすることも彼らの旅路の否定になります。
Yeah, because what the fuck are they gonna do with all that fucking riches?
彼らが義理立てすべき祖国はすでに滅んでいる。その時点で彼らの旅路の意味などもう失われてる。気の毒な話だ。
どうせ意味のないことならインゴットの一本でもありつけた方がまだマシだと。
損得感情で言えばそうなる。そうならねえのが男ってもんだがな。
Well, I think this is a good time to end it from here. So, what have I learned from this part? You know, other than Kinzo and Beatrice, you know, getting along quite nicely as friends. You know, both are the interpreters, or I guess the better word is translators. So we have this huge, you know. So apparently, within that's the funny thing. Beatrice is the gold alchemist. Nah, in reality, you know, all this gold riches was transported within a battered up submarine driven by the Italians during the World War II. And then the whole debate is that they wanted to request the Japanese to hide the big amount of riches within the hidden island. However, within the condition by the Japanese, and when I say look, and I don't mean it to generalize it in a way, but the Japanese superiors on Rokujima said that they wanted a fraction of the gold. Although I guess when it comes to both sides, it's pretty suspect of what they want to do with the gold, because it can be placed within the wrong hands. And greed does tend to stroke its ego. Anyway, next part we'll continue more of the backstory of the such. We're going to see how that will turn out. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Have a good one.